Welcome to Small Talk by Sfarim Chatter. I'm Nachi Weinstein. On this episode of Small Talk, I'm going to be joined by Naphtaly Levy, who is the publisher and the man behind the newly published sefer Te'imo Mitoras Rab Sham Shafal Hirsch, newly published on Bereshis Shmais Vayikra. This is the first volume of a planned 2 volumes, if not more. And Naphtaly's been the one behind these. It's been coming out as Parsha sheets for a while now. He's been sending it to me for a while. I've been posting it on Sfarim Chatter. It's been coming out, and now it's edited and compiled into a sefer. So thank you, Naphtaly, for joining me.
Okay, thank you, Nachi, for having me. Just one little disclaimer here is I'm not ready to be discussing anything about Rav Hirsch or his Torah, and I would say even the sefer, but being no one else is willing to, I'm going to go for it, especially since Reb Nachi's podcast is definitely popular out there, and reaches many people, and I'm hoping, and my goal is to help get the sefer out there. So, Reb Nachi, here we go.
Okay, and this is really what you were trying to do anyways with the Parsha sheets. I mean, since we first spoke a year ago, or maybe more, 2 years ago by now, this is what you were trying to really promote Rav Hirsch's Torah. This is why we're going to get into this is kind of a rewriting, re-edited Rav Hirsch ala Torah on every Parsha, and you've been pumping this out with the help of Rav Moshe Hecht, which we'll discuss. And so... you don't. Worth mentioning to listeners. You say you're not Roy, but you are an Anikel, the Levies. You are a descendant of Rav Hirsch. So, okay, I think your grandfather would be happy with you talking about his Torah. Okay, so what can you tell the listeners about this sefer, and by extension, the whole project of the Parsha sheets, and then how it became a sefer?
Okay, so number one is I do want to correct one little thing here. Is this sefer is not just a compilation of Parsha sheets, those weeklies. That was only something I put out, which is only a certain amount of the sefer. I put out really just to get people's feedback, to see if this style is something that people will appreciate and could connect to and could help bring out Rav Hirsch's Torah. With that said, to describe what can you tell me about this sefer? Basically, I reached out to a few different writers, and I approached them and said, hypothetically, if Rabbi Rucham Olsha and Reb David Kain or anyone else in the world was mechavan to Rav Hirsch in 2023 lemisparam, and they said, help me put out my sefer, however that vart would look, that's what I want to do to X amount of shtiklach and put it into a sefer. Again, why did I use those people as an example? Is because they've got popular svarim out there. And I'm hoping that Rav Hirsch, will be something used more than it is today. I think some of the reason why potentially it's not used as, go back for 1 second, the other mashal, just to again bring out exactly what this sefer is, the other mashal I used to the different writers was, let's say someone was giving a Thursday night shir on Chumash, and he said he's going to give a shir on Rav Hirsch, and he would, not just using it as a springboard to say his own Torah, he actually was going to give a shir on Rav Hirsch, and let's say he's a Bucky and has a real hekif in Rav Hirsch and, can lay it out nicely. He wouldn't just be reading Rav Hirsch verbatim on that week's Parsha. He would take from all different places and set it up nicely, put some questions here, put the vart there, and reformat it and say it in his own words. So that was the other example I gave these writers. Again, I'm just saying this because I want to give exactly what this sefer, what the intention was, and that's Siyata Shemaya, really what came out of it. So I ended up going with Hecht, I would say, just because it reads like water. It was, I can't say, I could just say it really reads like water. It's Moishech people to the Vart, in the Vart. And Baruch Hashem, he put a lot of kaiches into it. There were others involved, some others even in the writing, putting together the Mar Mekaimis in a full way. And then we had some people that are tremendous bikiyim that went through it or helped with some, called abstract Mar Mekaimis, not just in the Chumash, or something that might be an addition or even help create the Vart, so to speak, with people that really know Rav Hirsch. So that's kind of what the actual sefer is.
Because, that's very important to point out, because it's called Te'imo Mitoras Rav Hirsch, so it's a taste of Rav Hirsch's Torah. And obviously Rav Hirsch's Torah, for those that are familiar, is very extensive, very long. The commentary on Chumash, just, that's where most of this is drawn from. Obviously, you will get into the sources where this stuff is taken from on each parsha. It's good you clarified it's not just the weekly parsha sheet that went out. Sorry for that. So this is important. Rav Hirsch, like you're saying, Rav Hirsch, there was some various reasons why people maybe don't, I think those that are into Rav Hirsch are very into him, but maybe those other ones that aren't. His commentary is quite lengthy. He wrote it in German, so now we have the Hebrew translation, this Hebrew translation, that Hebrew translation, this English translation, that English translation. It's not, as you're saying, necessarily in the, you wanted, Rav Shech to write it into this kind of we worked easy, free-flowing, modern reading for those interested in reading it, and then to compile it on each parsha just as one running theme. And let's discuss that. When you mentioned like someone want to give a Thursday night shir, like this is like their shir, this is like the Rav's speech on Shabbos. Clarify what you mean. So Rav Hirsch, like we said, has this kind of lengthy commentary going through the entire parsha by parsha. What did you kind of create here? What is each piece, if you will, each one? Because I'll just already point out the way it works. I opened up the Parshas Vayetze. I don't know, so I opened up, right? So just to say, like, you have the pasuk that it's going. So he took the stone, and he poured the oil on it, the one that he slept on. So right away, you have like a bold header, and then you go in Aleph Beis through it. But then also on the bottom, which is very nice, in the beginning, it says, Milukit Midivrei Rabbeinu. Tell the reader exactly where you're coming from. This is not just made out here. It's from Bereishis Ches Chaf, Chaf Ches Yud Ches, Lamed Gimel Chaf, Shmois Chaf, Chav Zayin, Vayikra, Chavav, Bamidbar, Chav Ches, Dvarim, Horeb, Oisef Ksavim. So you're really coming from all over. Again, the bulk of it being the Chumash commentary, but all over, all of Hirsch's writing, and you're telling them. So you're not, each passage writing, okay, this paragraph came from here. No.
Actually, if I may interject there,
go ahead.
Which reminds me, the last thing I told the writers, sorry, I forgot that, is use Rav Hirsch's, all of his writings as notes. Now, obviously, we have a little challenge there. As I say, let's say use Rabbi Rucham Olshan as an example. If his writer knaches something and he really likes it, he'll be like, that's better than what I was thinking originally. Here, we did not have that liberty. The one other, again, aspect of this project is trying to be 100% faithful to Rav Hirsch, and that was definitely a big challenge / the part of the main goal here. So that's something that, even though we went to many places, or being that we took from many places, helps make sure that we stayed grounded and trying to keep to that goal.
Okay, so that being said, it's nice that you do lay out the Mar Makayimos for each one at the beginning, and each parsha is really a couple of pages. Have 1, 2, 3, kind of 4 or 5. This one's bigger. This one's actually much bigger. So how big is each parsha? And also, that's sort of what I was getting at is each parsha that you take in here, at least in this first volume, is each parsha one overall theme, let's say one drasha, one speech, one theme, and you're trying to blend different parts of our Hirsch story into one coherent piece? Or are there different different pieces?
There's definitely things to take out, different points, but primarily it is one theme. And again, we actually tried to pick the different verts that we did, let's say per parsha, or the one vert we did per parsha is something that could be used in multiple parshas. And again, evident from the fact that we're taking from multiple places, Hirsch discusses it in numerous places. And that's actually one of the complications, I would say, or part of the hindrance maybe of people learning or appreciating Rav Hirsch is that it was a running commentary. Rav Hirsch had a tremendous system, in his thought process throughout the Torah, but yet the Chumash is something that's really, I think, was taken off of the shir that he gave to his community and then put into a safer form. But that shir was given, on the pasuk. So it's a running commentary throughout the Torah and part of a larger system, part of a larger vart, many of them similar to each other, even if it's on different mitzvahs, because it's a recurring theme. It's an important thing, so to speak, in the Torah. So therefore, it's not always so easy to get it from that one spot. And I would say that was part of the I think the success with God's help of this sefer is that you can be impressed by opening up one vart versus if you open up Rav Hirsch on any given page, even if you're brilliant or big Talmid Chacham, you're not necessarily going to walk away like, oh wow, this is something I must read more of or learn more of.
Okay, so perhaps you have an example that you can clarify, but I'll just mention some of like the headers so listeners can get a feel. Like on Parashas Noach, it's Yetzer Tov Yetzer Hara Koyach HaNeurim. And you start off with the pasuk towards the end. V'yarach Hashem reich nechoyach, v'yarach Hashem libo li'oisef l'kal u'res adam, above hor adam, case lev adam rabin u'rim, v'li'oisef v'l'hakis es kol l'chayek asher sees. And sometimes said he's not going to do it again. Then you get to, in Parashas going to flipping it to Parashas Lech Lecha. So Parashas Lech Lecha, you have Am Yisrael l'mayla min hateva. And talking about Avraham Avinu. But then you get to Parashas Vayera, you have Keloilam, Vita Ish B'Rashava, Yirkar Shem B'Shem Hashem, Keloilam, and you go through that. And Parshas Chaisara, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Bakol, Mikol, Kol, and going on, and you start off with the pasuk Avram Zokim Baba Yom, Hashem Berachas Avram Bakol, and then you go through different sheets. I don't know if you have one example you want to give, just and then in each piece, you have various headers. And breaking it down, so it's not just one long, lengthy piece. So to give some sort of example, so when you have in Noach, you'll have Kamatech. So the first big header is Kamatech. There are many Techash. In the fire Shapasik Pshuta. You don't explain it. Pashup Shat. Shachadash Baruch Hu Bo Loimar Shemak Mashi Yitzaleva Adam Ram and Urav in Oite Elas Lakaisev Liancher. There's no purpose, and then you'll go through. You play your Hirsch, pasuk zelafip shute tuva. This pasuk doesn't make a lot of sense. Hashem saying now I'm not going to go and curse anymore. I'm not going to do anything. But there's no point because a person's bad. But don't you bring right? Why? Hashem created the world and he goes, you know what? Terrible thing. What did I create? It's awful. There's no purpose in this place. Like what does that mean? So you explain to her more questions, and then. There's the next, skip, what do you say? You have to look at the safer, but I was going to give an example. This one, or you have another example. Then you go next header. Seder HaPasuk for base. Seder HaPasuk Merish Afilu Yishuv Yoshuv Yetzer Leva Adam Liyos, right? Even if it's bad. Vafilu Min Urav Aval Pikin Liyosef Lahashmin Eseder. Still Hashem won't destroy it. Then you go to Gimel. Yetzer Yitziras Rayanas Umachshavis Adi Alev Shemos Biyad They call it Midas Kachem Rabbi Yotzes Midas etc. You can get so it's kind of header. There's small. Then you go. You give the header to break down what you're going to do, and then you have the ice. So kind of we said more of a modern reading rather than just a running long.
Style,
yeah,
and it's written, which you mentioned before, which was originally in German, and it was a flowery German. Long running sentences, and again, this sefer was entirely rewritten. There's no copy and paste. This is not a Likud sefer. I'm trying to make it as contemporary and easy to be able to learn again, even though this is not. This is not a little Vertel style sefer.
Yeah, that's important to point out. You're not going to pick this up. Now, it's not... You tried to make it more accessible rather than some of which was super heavy, but it's still not like chill little vort to say on the parsha. That's not what this is.
You could figure out how to pull it out, if you hit the right paragraph right in the middle, because again, we try to make it with a build-up, with bring the questions first, make it compelling, say the vart, then the yisoid, and then tie it back all together. But it's something... today's style.
Why did you decide to do this project? You talked about this. You wanted to make it more accessible. You picked the contemporary Rosh Yeshiva that you liked. But, you're an Einik over Hirsch. You're someone that's interested in Hirsch's Torah for many years. You've learned it, well. But what made you just say, you know what? Now's the time to imam Torah of Hirsch. Let me make it more accessible. Let's rewrite it for a modern reader and just make it available for a modern reader rather than just someone, because, with Rav Hirsch is like one of those commentaries. You ask people, did you ever learn Rav Hirsch? And they're like, oh, it's so long. Forget about it. I am not reading that. That is just, even with all the different English and Hebrew, I am not looking at that. So what was the impetus for doing this?
Okay, so, you started giving the part of the answer, and we discussed a little bit of the answer maybe before. Yes, one is I am an Einikol. Second is when I was learning in Philadelphia, I would say it's like the only English sefer, I think, in the library. I think there was a half a chayrev, one of the two volumes, when it was split up, and the Hirsch Chumash. I think they had the Haftarahs as well, which is not Rav Hirsch himself.
So I was in Philly after you, but I was Gabbai Svarim there for a couple of years. Yeah, it was one of the only Svarim that we had. I remember even when we got the new one, I think when I was there, and we bound it. I was also involved with the binding. We put it in the Chumash, and I remember one of the guys was binding, why we have this English sefer? What's going on with this English? I said, Rav Hirsch wrote it in German. We could have it in English.
Right, which actually, there's a story I was just told recently. Reb Meir Stern in Pseic, there was someone there that was in charge of the Oitzer Svarim, and for many years, and at one point, if I understand the story, if I recall the story correctly, there was someone had donated many English Svarim, and Reb Meir Stern, they asked him if they should put it in, or Meir Stern, said, please take them out, and as he was, removing all of them, the person asked Rameir Stern, the Shiva, if he should leave the Rav Hirsch. And he said, Rav Hirsch, you should leave. Because all those other Svarim, you could learn them in bed. This one, you've got a harav over. It's just a whole different, ball game. So getting back to the actual question, why? So it's something I appreciated, so to speak, on a personal level for the most part, mostly was, the biggest impact is the time of the mitzvahs. Something which he does, in just a, unique, fascinating way. And again, if you learn a lot of it, you see the way it's behechrich. It's not just it's just beautiful. And again, what's beautiful about time of the mitzvahs is it gives a geschmack. Not that, and obviously as he makes clear, not that that's why we do the mitzvahs, but might as well, enjoy them, or if it gives you an extra geschmack in it, definitely he does that all over. I actually wanted to put out a sefer strictly on time of mitzvahs, and everyone told me, Rav Hirsch, no one knows much about him. If you want to get there, you got to first put something out on the Chumash, or Chumash based. So obviously we got many of the time of the mitzvahs in there, but it's in a, it was more Chumash based. Now, why did we do it? So originally, this is actually interesting. I originally thought many people knew Rav Hirsch Svarim, but it wasn't necessarily an easy read. So hey, let's rewrite it a little bit and make it easier. When I actually started this project, full time, when we started to proceed, and went full throttle, decided we're going to put out the sefer. So when we actually decided we're going to start this sefer for real, and we're going to make it happen, soon, I came to the realization after showing it to many people, just to get in that. That's why we went to some of those weeklies, just to get people's feel, and we had tremendous feedback from just a diverse, a diverse crowd of different types of learners, whether it's pshat, whether it's some people into machshava, and just the full spectrum. And I came to realize that it's not just that people had a hard time. People had no clue what's inside of Hirsch, including the writer, Moshe Hecht, told me after 1 week of working on it, he said, the Olam HaTorah has no clue what's inside, end quote. And many other people, big Talmid Chacham that I had the opportunity to show it to, or even are working on it, said, this is just, no one knows what's inside. So I think as a klal, that's an accurate statement, and that's something I came to realize more and more. So the project, even though I thought it was just about making it easy to learn, it was a matter of bringing it to the masses, where from big Talmid Chacham to brilliant people to regular laymen have no clue what's inside, including Rabbanim. Again, they'll hear a vart, they'll repeat the vart, but this is not something that gets learned as a whole, even though it's such a monumental pirush, which is so multifaceted. So that's something we tried to implement. Each vart even is multifaceted. It's not just, if you like this. Obviously, there's different types of varts in the Sefer, but even in each vart, you have, again, I'm really quoting from others, Rav Hirsch was a Talmid Chacham that there was nothing that he didn't see in front of him, from Chazal to Rambam to every Gemara, Rashi, Tosafos, Rishonim, to all of Tanakh, that was right in front of him. So therefore, yes, he got involved sometimes, and he gets involved, in words sometimes, what the shirish is, or what phonetically, what words, what they mean based off of so many other words that, again, he saw from Lashon HaKodesh all the way to our, to Aramish words from the Gemara. But it's like a focus of a sefer. He can be answering a Tosafos and Shabbos in middle discussing the luchos. There's just every Rambam. It's just a pirush that nothing is off the table, and therefore his ideas sometimes are just so different than others, or consistently like certain type of svarim that might discuss or have a similar type of style, but not on a consistent basis, where he consistently has his mahalach on many, many, many topics or many varts.
Okay, do you want to give one example from the Sefer, perhaps, to illustrate this?
So you mentioned before Parshas Vayetze. I think we'll try to bring that out again in a very short, abbreviated, just hitting the main Yesod, not going through all the questions. And I think there's a nice example of his time of the mitzvahs, which again really is built out with all the questions and the different rayos, but it's something he does with dealing with all the halachas of it and the actual metzias of the lav or the asay, and explains a time of the mitzvah with that. So Mizbeach Matzeva, which again could be used in many, many different places. Look, it's not just Parshas Vayetze and Shoftim. Kind of anywhere that you see the word Mizbeach Matzeva, you can or Matzeva, you can really bring this out. So we have the question of why is a matzeva? Why was matzeva ohov by the avis? And the way in the medrash it's brought down, the Sifri, is matzeva zu ahuva la'avis usnua levanim. How or why should that be? And all it's not only mizbeach after Matan Torah was ohov by the banim, and the other one again is snua, is sane. And part of from the big questions on that is that if the way Rashi explains is the reason why is because now the goyim started, or also the goyim served with matzeva, and therefore Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want us serving him with the matzeva, only mizbeach. The big question on that is mizbechos were also served. The goyim also served in the Beis Avodah Zarah with a mizbeach. So why wasn't that asered as well? So good, right? The Rishonim obviously discussed that it wasn't used as much with the same percentage, but still, I think it's a question that Rav Hirsch comes to answer, and he explains that a matzeva is one stone; it's in its natural state, and by us bringing a carbon, that symbolizes the Rebbeinu Shalom as the God, so to speak, the God that created the world, and that's what he gave mankind, what he gives us. So if we bring a carbon on that represents that we're symbolizes that we are serving him as the God that gives us things and created the world, and is what's brings the destiny of man. The history of the world is the doings of God. Then comes a mizbeach after Matan Torah. Hashem says, serving me like that was good for the others. They're the ones that had to come to that akara of their Rebbeinu Shalom is in charge of the world. After Matan Torah, it's about what you're doing for me. It's about serving me with your everyday maisa and your every last maisa. Why is that symbolized through mizbeach? Because mizbeach has to be built with numerous stones. That's already showing man's abilities or man's actions on earth. So now by us bringing a carbon, which is symbolizing we're ready to do whatever it is in the service of Hashem. What type of service is that? That's us symbolized by us bringing a carbon, saying we're ready. We're going to serve you in our actual maisa. Another point here is the mizbeach is the only shear when it comes to measurement that in the shiurim that is ma'akiv mizbeach, says the Gemara, is the measurement of that has to be squared. Rav Hirsch brings down that there's only one, that when it comes to a square or versus something that's circular, there's nothing in the Bria that was created squared. That is something that only man made. And that represents, again, symbolizes that man's koyach on earth, his actions. So therefore it's something that is one of it's the only ikuva when it comes to the measurements of the mizbeach, because again, that's going to symbolize that we're going to serve you in all with all our actions. That's again in a very abbreviated form of this vart. And going back to the second question that we brought down, which is how come matzeva as well, mizbeach as well, was used by the Beis Avodah Zarah? To that, the answer according to this is very geschmack, because yes, the goyim also use mizbeachas. Matzeva is something that symbolizes something totally different, or is there to help us remind us that is something that's symbolized by bringing a carbon on matzeva. So therefore, which is not anymore our job, that is not our main goal. It might be included in our, and if we're keeping keeping to the service of Hashem through the type of life of a mizbeach, that's great. That also will include, obviously, that we believe in Hashem, which is, so to speak, represented by matzeva. Just doing a service, just serving Hashem in that manner is at this point totally sunny.
Who would you say the Sefer is for? So what are you trying to accomplish with the Sefer? And through that, who would you say the Sefer is for?
So again, the goal here is to give people an opportunity to realize what is in Rav Hirsch. Obviously, B'siyata Shmaya, people will want to learn his svarim, again, feel compelled or interested or realizing that it's worthwhile, versus someone just opened it up. So again, as we said before, 1 or 2 pages, he not necessarily will get to appreciate his Pirush. Again, this is a Pirush. People may not be aware that few and far between know it. Actually, Rabbi Avram Shor, we had the Zechus, who was very, very warm regarding this project and gave great chizuk to myself, to be honest. Took my phone calls and discussed the project. As he writes in a letter here, that his father, Rabbi Gedalia Shor, learned German in order to be able to learn of Hirsch's Svarim. I guess it's up to debate how he knew he should, but that's something, and he even says that it's something he, I think, often or many times quoted in his shmuzin in yeshiva. There were definitely many, I guess, we did really discuss this again. This is really not my place to discuss this, but the Gedolim of his time and definitely many Gedolim throughout, including Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. Go look at there's a beautiful story of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter that met Rav Hirsch and ended up going through the 19 letters, which was a very small sefer. At that point, he was not familiar with German, and he learned it with someone. It says the moment he saw it that day, he went into the wee hours of the morning, and then throughout the next couple of weeks, just to go through the sefer, and said, not only should this be translated into Russian, it should be translated into Lashon HaKodesh. So there's people that actually were familiar with Rav Hirsch's Torah that were very compelled. Reb Chaim Ozer, famously, which we actually bring down part of that in the Sefer, and one called a contemporary, I think we could say the Stipler, writes very strongly in his Hakdama Chai Olam what an important Sefer Rav Hirsch is. He literally, you look inside there, he literally puts him right below Ga'inim, Rishonim, the few Rishonim he brings down if someone wants to work on their Emunah, and then he says V'yesh gam me'achroinim, and he only brings down one person, one achron, which is a very interesting call, almost like a historical fact. So again, this is something that is really, and again, time of the mitzvahs, I think you could say, he might have been fighting reform, but time of the mitzvahs is something that people could appreciate. You look at the different letters, again, you discuss it with, there's many people that truly appreciate, actually I'll bring one more person, Rustin Sherman, who you can definitely say is very familiar with all Svarim. He told me that for what he thinks this generation would appreciate, it is very underlearned sefer. So again, our goal was to try to put it in a way that people will be able to appreciate it. I think also just to end off is the sefer is for everyone and anyone, from Rosh Hashivas, Rabbanim. It was something I always kept in checking. Is this something how a Rav could use? I would ask different Rabbanim along the way. Oh, absolutely, we could use such material. You have regular, balabatim, teachers, principals, girls' school, I'm talking about, for girls' schools, this is something that everyone and anyone could use, and B'siyat Shmaya will. And again, thank you very, very much, Nachi, for having me on, and hopefully, B'siyat Shmaya, this will help get the sefer out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naphtaly, for coming on to discuss it. And this is the first volume, Breish Shmois Vayikra. So for those interested, it's available in the farm stores. I'll be a link in the show notes. You can purchase it online. And coming soon, you're still working on Bamidvar Dvarim Mayadim. That's the plan for the next volume? As of now.
It's hard to say. I think that's what you feel should happen.
That's what I feel. So I'm putting it out there on the podcast. That should be the next one. But you're definitely working on at least Bamidvar Dvarim. You're definitely working on more. It's not just going to be left hanging.
Put it this way. There's no one, including someone this last week, I've been showing him some big Chashav Rashi from Eretz Yisrael that happens to be in my neighborhood. And he so far has gone through from Bereshis over a few days through B'Shalach. He hasn't missed one. He told me he's just blown away. Every single piece. He actually, for some reason, liked the Noach piece with Yitzhahara the most, even though my bigger of Hirsch people thought that is not necessarily the piece we should go with, but the people that never learned of Hirsch before were so blown away that they couldn't control themselves and put it into the sefer.
Very good. Thank you, Naphtaly, for joining me.